A Ghost in the Crayola. Chapter 1, The Unseen Architect. Austin, Texas, shimmered under the late summer sun, its vibrant energy a stark contrast to the quiet solitude Evelyn Hall often found herself in. At 75, a widow for 5 years, Evelyn's life had settled into a comfortable, if sometimes lonely, rhythm. Her greatest joy came from the frequent visits of her son, Matt, and her 6-year-old grandson, Liam. Liam was a quiet child, unusually observant, with a surprising artistic talent that often manifested in vivid, imaginative drawings. One Tuesday afternoon, Liam, perched at Evelyn's kitchen table, his crayons spread in a riot of color, was absorbed in his work. Evelyn, sipping her tea, watched him with affection, marveling at the intensity in his small face. After a long silence, Liam finally held up his finished masterpiece, a serious expression on his face, and presented it to Evelyn. "For you, Grandma," he said, his voice soft. Evelyn took the drawing, her smile ready. She expected a colorful monster, a whimsical animal, or perhaps a bright, sunny landscape. What she saw instead made her breath catch in her throat, sending a jolt of ice through her veins. It was a house, an old 2-story house, depicted with startling detail. The paint was peeling, a dull, faded blue. The porch sagged slightly to the left, its railing broken in one spot. One upstairs window was dark, as if the light inside had long since died. A single crooked rain gutter hung precariously from the side. The overall impression was one of forgotten melancholy, of a place abandoned and yearning. Evelyn stared at the drawing, her mind reeling. She knew this house. She knew every splinter of its porch, every flake of its peeling paint, every shadow it cast under the Oklahoma sun. This was her childhood home, a house she hadn't lived in for almost 60 years, a house in a small, forgotten town in Oklahoma that Liam had could never have seen. "Liam," Evelyn whispered, her voice barely audible. Where did you see this house?" Liam looked up at her, his big, innocent eyes holding a surprising depth. "I saw it in my dream, Grandma," he replied, his tone utterly matter-of-fact. "A little boy showed it to me. He was very sad. He wants to go home." Evelyn felt a tremor run through her. A little boy, sad, wants to go home. It was too much. "But how did you know it looked exactly like this? The broken gutter, the saggy porch?" she pressed, her voice urgent. Liam simply shrugged, picking up a green crayon. "He showed me," he repeated, then returned to coloring the grass, dismissing her profound shock with the casual ease of childhood. When Matt arrived to pick up Liam, Evelyn, still reeling, showed him the drawing. Matt, a pragmatist to his core, initially dismissed it with a chuckle. "Kids' imaginations, Mom. They pick up on things. Maybe you had an old photo album out." "No, Matt, I didn't. Not of that house. Not for decades," Evelyn insisted, her voice tight with an emotion she couldn't name. "Look at the details. The exact shade of blue. The way the porch leans. He couldn't have known." Matt examined the drawing more closely, his brows furrowing. The specificity was indeed unnerving. He shook his head, a faint unease flickering in his eyes, but he offered no logical explanation. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The image of the house, so vivid in Liam's drawing, haunted her. And then the inexplicable began. A faint whisper of a child's laughter seemed to drift from the empty hallway. A beloved old locket, a forgotten heirloom, inexplicably moved from her dresser to her bedside table. A melancholic, almost inaudible melody seemed to hum from the corner of her living room, the tune she couldn't place, yet felt profoundly sad. Evelyn, a woman who had always trusted in the tangible, in the rational, felt the comfortable boundaries of her reality begin to blur. Was she finally succumbing to the creeping frailties of old age, to a mind playing tricks on her? Or was there something else, something unseen, reaching out through the innocent hand of her grandson? Chapter 2: Whispers in the Quiet House. The strange occurrences in Evelyn's Austin home continued. Small, unsettling anomalies that chipped away at her rational composure. The faint scent of wood smoke, a smell that had no business in her modern, air-conditioned house. A toy car, long forgotten in Liam's old toy box, appearing on her kitchen counter. A child's faint, high-pitched giggle echoing from the empty bedroom. Each incident was fleeting, easily dismissed on its own, but together they formed a chilling tapestry of the inexplicable. Evelyn confided in Matt, who, though still skeptical, was clearly concerned for his mother. "Mom, maybe you should see someone," he suggested gently. "A doctor. Stress can manifest in strange ways." Evelyn considered it. Was she truly losing her grip? The thought was terrifying, yet the conviction that Liam's drawing was more than just a coincidence, that the whispers were more than just an overactive imagination, remained stubbornly lodged in her mind. She consulted a child psychologist, Dr. Helen Chang, a specialist in gifted children. Dr. Chang listened patiently to Evelyn's story, her expression one of professional neutrality. "Liam certainly has a remarkable artistic talent," Dr. Chang observed, studying the drawing of the house. "Children often have vivid imaginations. It's possible he picked up on a stray conversation, saw an old photo you don't remember, or perhaps even a similar image in a book or online. The little boy he speaks of could be an imaginary friend, a common coping mechanism for quiet children, or a manifestation of his own unconscious thoughts." But even Dr. Chang, a woman of science, couldn't fully explain the level of detail in the drawing. The specificity of the architectural details is unusual for a child his age, especially if he hasn't seen the house, she conceded. "It's intriguing." The lack of a definitive, rational explanation only fueled Evelyn's inner turmoil. She knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that Liam had not seen the house before, and the faint, sad melody that sometimes drifted through her living room. A tune she couldn't quite grasp, but which evoked a profound sense of longing, was becoming more frequent. She started looking through her old family photos, carefully, meticulously. Perhaps, she thought, there was a tiny image of the house in the background of some forgotten snapshot. But there was nothing. The only images she had of that house were in a dusty, ancient album stored in the attic, an album she hadn't touched in decades. One evening, while looking at an old photo of herself as a child on the porch of that very house, a memory flickered to life. A faint, almost forgotten sound. The sound of a child's cry from inside, quickly hushed. And the smell of something acrid, sharp, like burning plastic, quickly covered by the sweet scent of her mother's jasmine. She had dismissed it at the time, a child's fleeting impression. But now it resonated with a chilling significance. There had been a fire, a small one, something her parents had never spoken of, something she had never questioned. Suddenly, Liam's words echoed in her mind. He wants to go home. And the boy is sad. What if the boy wasn't imaginary? What if he was something else? something tied to that house, to a past tragedy Evelyn had almost forgotten. A terrifying, yet undeniable compulsion took root in Evelyn's heart. She had to go back, to that house, to that small town in Oklahoma. She had to find the truth. Not just for her own peace of mind, but for the silent, sad boy who reached out through her grandson's innocent drawings. Chapter 3. The Road to Ruston Creek. The decision to return to her childhood home in Ruston Creek, Oklahoma, was met with concern from Matt. "Mom, are you sure about this? It's a long drive, and that town? It's practically a ghost town now." "I have to go, Matt," Evelyn insisted, her voice firm, resolute. "Liam's drawing and these other things, I need to understand." To Matt's surprise, Liam, overhearing the conversation, piped up, "The boy wants me to go with him, Daddy. He said he'll show us his room." His eyes, direct and unwavering, held a strange conviction. Matt, though still skeptical, saw the profound emotional need in his mother's eyes and the uncanny certainty in his son's. Against his better judgment, he agreed to drive them. He packed a bag, a first aid kit, and a healthy dose of apprehension. The journey was long, miles melting into a blur of Texan and Oklahoman landscapes. As they approached Ruston Creek, the scenery became more desolate, the towns sparser, houses more run down. The town itself was a collection of crumbling storefronts, a single gas station, and a few scattered, weathered homes. It was a place time had forgotten. Evelyn directed Matt towards the old, familiar street. Her heart pounded as they turned onto Maple Avenue. And there it was, the house. It stood exactly as Liam had drawn it. The same faded blue paint, flaking in large patches. The porch sagged in the exact spot. The broken rain gutter hung precariously. The upstairs window, as in Liam's drawing, was dark and empty, a hollow eye staring out at the world. It was a mirror image of the drawing, a chilling testament to Liam's inexplicable accuracy. "It's it, Grandma," Liam said softly, his voice devoid of surprise, as if he had always known. "That's his house. He's sad." Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. The rationalist in her screamed for an explanation, but her heart knew there was none that fit. They pulled up to the curb. The yard was overgrown, choked with weeds and wild brush. The for sale sign, faded and leaning, had been there for decades. The house was clearly abandoned, its windows boarded up downstairs, the upper ones broken or dark. "It looks exactly like my dream, Grandma," Liam stated, his eyes fixed on the house. "He's inside. He wants us to come in." Before entering the decaying house, Evelyn wanted to seek out Mrs. O'Malley, her old neighbor, if she was still alive. They found the O'Malley house down the street, its porch swing creaking gently in the breeze. Mrs. O'Malley, frail but with a sharp memory, recognized Evelyn instantly. "Evelyn Hall. Good heavens, child, you've grown. What brings you back to this old place?" she exclaimed, her eyes widening with a mix of surprise and ancient sorrow. Evelyn explained, hesitantly, about Liam's drawing, about the feeling that something was tied to the house. Mrs. O'Malley's kind face clouded with memory. "The house," Mrs. O'Malley murmured, her gaze drifting towards Evelyn's old home. "Oh dear. After your family moved away, the Clarks moved in, a lovely young couple with a sweet little boy, Thomas. He was about Liam's age, a quiet, sensitive child, always playing in the house. He loved that house, said it was his best friend." She paused, a profound sadness settling on her features. Then the tragedy, a fire. Just a small one from an old lamp. But Thomas, he was playing hide and seek. They couldn't find him in time. He died in that house. A terrible, terrible accident. So young. They moved out shortly after, of course. Couldn't bear it. The house has been empty ever since. Some say his spirit never left, that he's still playing there, waiting for someone to find him. Evelyn felt a cold certainty settle in her bones. Thomas, the little boy, the one Liam had seen in his dream, the one who wanted to go home. The fragmented memory of the burning plastic, the stifled cries, the jasmine, it all clicked into place. Evelyn's childhood memory, suppressed by time and her parents' protective silence, was a fragment of Thomas's tragedy. Chapter 4: Through the Veil. The revelation of Thomas's tragic fate sent a shiver through Matt. The drawing, the whispers, Liam's uncanny connection. It was no longer just a child's imagination. It was something profoundly unsettling, something that defied logical explanation. "You really want to go in there, Mom?" Matt asked, his voice laced with apprehension. As they stood before the house's warped front door. "He's waiting," Liam said simply, his small hand reaching for Evelyn's. "He wants to show us." With a deep breath, Evelyn pushed open the creaking door. The air inside was thick with dust and the chill of years of neglect. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the grimy windows, casting long, eerie shadows. The house was a wreck, wallpaper peeling, floorboards warped, furniture draped in ghostly white sheets. As they stepped inside, Liam immediately began to move, as if guided by an unseen hand. He walked directly to the old fireplace in the living room, a place Evelyn remembered playing as a child. "He played here," Liam said, pointing. He liked the way the fire crackled. Liam led them from room to room, his commentary soft, almost a whisper. "He cried here," Liam said, pointing to a corner of the kitchen, where a faint scorch mark marred the floor. "He was scared," the scent of wood smoke, faint but undeniable, now filled the air. Finally, Liam led them to the small bedroom upstairs, the one with the dark window. The room was even more desolate than the others, covered in a thick layer of dust. Liam walked to a specific spot near the built-in bookshelf. "He hid here," Liam murmured, his voice sad. He was playing hide and seek. He knelt down, tapping on a loose floorboard. "His box is here. He wants us to find it." Matt, skeptical but intrigued, helped Evelyn pry up the old board. Beneath it, nestled in the dark cavity, was a small wooden box. It was covered in dust, but intact. Evelyn gently lifted the lid. Inside, nestled among a few tarnished toy soldiers and a worn teddy bear, was a faded, sepia-toned photograph. It showed a smiling little boy, no older than Liam, with bright, curious eyes and a shock of sandy hair. Thomas. Evelyn's heart ached. This was the boy who had haunted her memories, who had spoken to her grandson across the veil of time. And then she saw them. Tucked beneath the photograph, a small stack of letters, their envelopes unsealed, their paper fragile with age. Evelyn carefully unfolded the top letter. The handwriting was elegant, but shaky. The ink faded. The date was shortly after Thomas's death. "My dearest Thomas, it's been a week, my sweet boy, and I can't bear it. The house is so empty. Your laughter, it echoes in every room. Your father wants to leave, but I can't. I feel you here, your little ghost. You loved this house so much. You always said it was your best friend. I wish I wish I could stay here forever, just to feel close to you. I miss you, my son, so much. You were too good for this world. Forever, your loving mother. Evelyn read another and another. Letters filled with a mother's profound grief, her desperate longing for her lost son, her inability to leave the house that held his spirit. A mother had eventually moved away, consumed by sorrow, leaving her letters behind, a silent testament to her unfathomable pain. The room grew cold, but a profound understanding settled over Evelyn. Thomas, the little boy who died in the fire, had been trapped by his love for the house, by his mother's unfinished grief. He wasn't a malevolent spirit, but a lonely soul, searching for connection, for someone to acknowledge him, to bring him peace. And Liam, with his innocent gift, had been chosen to be that bridge. The little boy in the drawing, the sad boy who wanted to go home, was Thomas, and he had found his way home through Liam, through Evelyn. Chapter 5. A Glimmer of Peace. The discovery of the letters and the photograph of Thomas transformed the experience from unsettling to profoundly moving. Matt, initially skeptical, now stood quietly, his face etched with a mix of disbelief and a dawning understanding. Liam, meanwhile, knelt by the open box, gently touching the old teddy bear, a profound sadness in his eyes. "He wants to know if we'll remember him, Grandma," Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. Evelyn knelt beside him, her arm around his small shoulders. "We will, my love," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "We absolutely will." The presence in the house, which had felt unsettling earlier, now seemed to soften, almost a gentle hum of sadness and longing. Evelyn understood. Thomas, a child taken too soon, bound to a place he loved, yearned for recognition, for an acknowledgement of his brief, beautiful life. He wanted his story to be heard, his existence affirmed. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the house, a quiet communion with the past. Evelyn and Matt read all the letters, giving voice to the mother's grief, allowing Thomas's story to finally be told. They looked at his small toys, imagining the boy who played with them so many years ago. Liam, remarkably, seemed to find a sense of calm in the house, a quiet companionship with the unseen presence. As evening approached and the light began to fade, casting long, somber shadows, Liam picked up a fresh crayon and a piece of paper. He began to draw. This time, his hand moved with a fluid, almost joyful energy. He drew two boys, one, clearly Thomas, with his sandy hair and bright eyes, smiling. The other, unmistakably Liam, his arm around Thomas, both of them walking hand in hand towards a bright, golden light. "He's happy now, Grandma," Liam said, holding up the drawing. "He's going home, and he's not alone anymore." As Liam spoke, Evelyn felt it. A profound sense of release, a quiet stillness descend upon the house. The faint scent of wood smoke dissipated. The air felt lighter, warmer. The hum of sadness was gone. Thomas's spirit, it seemed, had found its peace. He had been heard, he had been seen, and he was finally, truly, going home. They left the house as dusk settled, pulling the warped door shut behind them. The house, though still dilapidated, no longer felt haunted or sad. It felt quiet, at rest. Chapter 6. The Unseen Threads of Connection. The drive back to Austin was marked by a profound silence, but it was a silence filled with understanding, not apprehension. Matt, shaken by the experience, was no longer a skeptic. He had seen too much, felt too much, to dismiss it as coincidence. He looked at Liam, sleeping soundly in the back seat, his small hand still clutching the drawing of the two boys walking into the light, with a mixture of awe and protective love. Evelyn felt a deep sense of purpose fulfilled. The initial terror had given way to a profound sense of peace. She understood now that some connections transcended the boundaries of logic, of time, of even death. Liam wasn't just a talented artist. He was a sensitive soul, a conduit to something beyond their understanding. He had given Thomas a voice, a farewell, and a pathway to peace. The subtle, unsettling occurrences in Evelyn's Austen home ceased after their return. The faint whispers, the moved objects, the sad melody, they were gone. Thomas had found his way home, and Liam's mission was complete. Liam, too, stopped mentioning the boy. His drawings returned to their usual whimsical subjects, colorful and bright. He seemed lighter, as if a quiet burden had been lifted from his small shoulders. Evelyn understood that this experience was a sacred trust, a story too precious and too personal to be shared with the world. She didn't need external validation. The peace within her was enough. She kept the drawing of the two boys, framed it, and hung it in her bedroom, a quiet reminder of the day her grandson helped a lost soul find its way home. She also kept the letters from Thomas's mother. She carefully placed them in a small, beautiful box, a testament to a mother's enduring love and grief. She imagined Thomas's mother, wherever she was, finally finding a measure of peace, knowing her son had been remembered, honored, and finally gently released. Evelyn's relationship with Liam deepened. She looked at him with a new understanding, a reverence for his quiet sensitivity, his extraordinary gift. She didn't push him, didn't probe. She simply loved him and acknowledged the unique person he was. Matt, seeing the profound impact on both his mother and his son, learned to approach the world with a little more openness, a little more wonder. Chapter 7. The Lingering Light. Evelyn Hall continued to live her life in Austen, but it was a life transformed. The experience with Liam and the house in Ruston Creek had subtly, yet profoundly changed her perspective. She no longer saw the world solely through the lens of rigid rationality. She now recognized the unseen threads that connected lives, the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of understanding. She often thought of Thomas, the little boy who had yearned for his home. She wondered about his mother, her silent grief echoing through decades, and she felt a profound gratitude for Liam, her innocent, gifted grandson, who had unknowingly become the bridge between worlds, an instrument of healing for a forgotten soul. The house in Ruston Creek remained empty, slowly crumbling back into the earth. But for Evelyn, it was no longer a symbol of abandonment or tragedy. It was a place of quiet peace, a monument to a small life remembered, a place where a lost spirit had finally found its way home. Evelyn understood that some stories weren't meant to be explained, but simply to be felt, to be honored. The ghost in the Crayola, the sad little boy who wanted to go home, had woven himself into the fabric of her family's history, leaving behind not fear, but a quiet wisdom. It was a reminder that even in the greatest loss, there can be connection. Even in the deepest sorrow, there can be peace, and that love, in its purest form, can transcend any boundary, reaching across time and memory, to heal the forgotten and bring solace to the lost. Evelyn had found not just a memory, but a profound, mystical connection that had reshaped her understanding of life, death, and the enduring power of the human spirit.